My name is Jacqui Beck. I'm an acrylic and mixed media painter. The paintings that you'll see here are kind of from two separate series of paintings. They are animal totems, and they're protection animal totems, and they're also paintings of places of safety. Some of the paintings combine the two, and some are just of the animals. So this painting is called Night Elephants, and I guess one of the things I like to think about is that our protectors aren't always, you wouldn't always recognize them necessarily as protectors. These elephants don't look fierce, they're not growling and showing their teeth, but there's a safety, the hugeness of the elephants, the comfortableness of the elephants, and so when I look at this painting, it just makes me feel comfortable and safe and kind of happy. And this painting is called King Crocodile. I did this painting in a Jesse Reno workshop down in Mexico. And many times I have an idea of what I'm going to paint when I start, and sometimes I don't. This painting was an emerging painting. It actually started this direction, so this would have been the top of the painting. And then I turned it around and it turned into a crocodile. And for me, there's a sense of humor and irony about the whole thing. It's not this huge, big, fierce thing coming in to be there for us. It's sometimes someone who just understands us and is there for us. And this painting is called In the Shade of the Temple. I did this painting originally as part of a demonstration for an art group down in South Seattle. And when I first painted it, I knew I didn't want to paint a figure into a painting when I was doing a demo. There's no way I was going to paint a person. Too much to go wrong. So he wasn't here, and then at some point I realized he needed to be there, so there he is. And to me, this is a painting about doing what we do in a place where we feel safe. So this painting, originally, I started it at a time when I was feeling that I needed sanctuary in my own life. Needed a place that was safe. And I realized that sanctuary for me isn't necessarily something outside myself and maybe inside myself. So this is part of a project that I'm doing called Gender Personal. And I was thinking about a person I know, Aiden Key, who is someone who provides safety and security for me. So I was thinking about Aiden when I painted this painting, that he provides safety and security for other people, but helps them to learn how to then have that for themselves. And so that's what this painting's about. One of the things I work with is surprise. I sometimes think ahead what I want to paint, but a lot of times I just paint and then watch and then paint and then watch and start to bring out what starts to emerge. So with this painting, all of a sudden the crocodile was there and his eye was there. I didn't paint that eye, it was one of the layers of underpainting that was just there. So, and crocodiles don't tend to have a fin either. He does. I didn't know what he was until he was what he was. So I just helped him to, it's sort of like I'm going to compare myself to Michelangelo, but he said, I take away the parts that aren't David and leaves David. So my name's Jacqui Beck. I'm an acrylic painter, and thanks for listening.
My name is Karen Graber, and I am a mixed media found object abstract artist. And the works I have in this show are Blue Woman and Window. And this one is called Awakening. And each piece I created in my studio without any pre-planned image for these works. They just come from whatever resonates for me in terms of the found object, which is what I usually start with. What I generally do is I collect found objects as I come across them, and I put them in my studio into boxes. But when I start a piece, I lay them out around me, and I just kind of look for something that speaks to me at the time for the particular piece I'm starting. And for this one, it was the plate. So I glue that on initially, and then I start with paint, and I kind of go back and forth with paint and found objects, and until something emerges for me. That's where the title came from. Blue Woman that's what I saw emerging from this piece. I really try to be in the moment and be receptive to what's in the studio at the time and what I'm drawn to. I like to experiment on the surface. I don't entirely know what will happen, and so part of it is just playing and experimenting, and sometimes you get some wonderful effects that you had no idea you were going to get. Yeah, it's an interesting process, but for me it's all about the process. Of course, I'm thrilled when a painting comes out well, but for me the real joy is in the process of working in my studio. That's when I feel really connected and alive and excited and frustrated, and I go through a whole range of things, but that's what keeps me coming back. I said in my art statement that for creativity to flourish, sometimes skills have to be minimized. They have to be, you have to set those aside in order to really go for it. I really believe that it's more important to go too far than not far enough, because if you play it safe, you might as well be doing anything. Why be an artist? If you're painting for other people and you're playing it safe, then for me that doesn't feel authentic. And so I don't have a theme with any of these really. The main thing for me is to tap into my creativity. I love to include mystery and humor in my work, and I like to juxtapose beauty and even ugliness, because I think paintings are metaphors for life and everything involved, and so it's all in there. My old teacher used to say to me that when you paint honestly from your gut, then your paintings are your best friends, because they're your teachers, and you learn so much from them, and it's really true. I really believe that I learned so much. I feel very lucky to be able to do this work. So, Karen Graver, and this is Blue Woman, Window, Awakening, and around the corner here is Inner Saint.
Okay, my name is Mark Ditzler. I'm a glass artist in Seattle. I have about 20 years experience doing glass, and before that I was a product designer, and I had a long history of doing ceramics. I like kiln form glass because it's a lot like ceramics. It uses the kiln, and I have a lot of background in mold making and other processes that I use for doing the glass. What I like the most about doing my glass is watching how the glass interacts with heat and how gravity and heat influences the patterns in the glass. So for instance, in this series, the iteration series, it is kiln cast glass that was cast as a slab of glass that was then sliced on the diamond saw. And the slices were book matched so that they have sort of a symmetry to them. I like the way that the pattern changes with every slice. It slowly evolves and changes as it goes through the piece. And it was sort of a happy accident that I noticed something I hadn't predicted would happen when I first started doing it. The other work that I have in the show are the basket forms, and they're basically making use of surface tension in the glass, which is so powerful that it pulls the glass from a flat rectangular strip into a sort of a rounded shape that looks very organic, and I like the way that it interacts. Also, the colors tend to pull and flow a lot in the kiln. I do some public art projects, and a lot of what I do here at the gallery are test pieces for public art. So if this works out, maybe I'll try it on a larger scale and try to get some good photos And the title of the show is Beyond Technique. And the way that I approach that is that I like to have a lot of techniques available to me that I can choose from, and that way I can emphasize the design more than worrying about executing the technique. You know, it's just like learn the technique and then make the design speak first. It's more important. I just get really excited when I see the material doing interesting things. I don't really do it to evoke emotions from the viewer. What I hope the viewer appreciates is all the details. I'm very detail conscious, particularly in my wall panels. I like people to see them from a distance, be attracted to them, and then come up and look at them really closely and see what's going on in there. And hopefully if it's in an environment where people see it over and over again, they'll continue to see new elements of the design that they hadn't noticed before. So that's my explanation of the show. I'd like to also pitch my class that I'm teaching in Istanbul, Turkey this summer, August 26th through September 7th. If anybody's interested, please contact the gallery for more information. And that's it.
My name is Shari Kaufman. I'm a clay artist at the Columbia City Gallery. I do ceramics on the wall, and for this exhibit, Beyond Technique, I wanted to explore how I could push beyond my technique using a mold. I do a lot of my ceramics works. I like to do multiples and repeat a certain shape, and so this whole exhibit that I've created here is based on this one shape from this mold that I created. I made it out of clay and then poured the plaster, and then I use it as a press mold. And so this first piece is this piece on the wall, and you can see the different shapes, and I tweaked them a little bit, pulled and pushed to get them to layer. So I loved the effect of that, and I'm using very minimal glaze. Just wanted to highlight the valleys and the different places in the piece. So when I completed the piece on the wall, then I wanted to turn my attention towards three-dimensional and to see how I could work with the pieces that are standing on pedestals, coming up, and then having the pods hanging. I had played with this idea a little bit before, and I have some of the pieces, I have some of the pods hanging from a trellis at home. So I wanted to explore that idea more and see how much I could do with that. So first I started with the basic shape. You can see when you look at these, here's that same shape that's coming off of that mold. And then the pieces here, I was able to really, starting from the inside, really layer them until I got to a place where I felt like it was a really full display, and then got the clay to be able to set up in this position. I'm using paper clay for this display, for this exhibit, which is much lighter. It's like 50% paper. And so when I was looking at hanging these pieces, I needed to make sure that they wouldn't fall off the ceiling and make each piece as light as I could. So you can see that there's some different styles here, and I have this vision of having the pods be closed and open. Because when I was creating this piece, it was right at the end of winter, starting to be spring, and so we had a very gray winter, and then we started to get just some of those early pops of color that were coming out, and I spend a lot of time, I draw most of my inspiration from nature, and so as I was on my daily walks, I was paying attention to how there was the color inside. So the outside of the pods would be very monotone, very light colors, but then they would start to pop open and you could see the color inside. So I was mimicking that with these pods. Just bringing in the slightest bit of color on the outside using that green glaze, and then for the pieces that were open, highlighted the color on the inside. So, and it's had a lot of fun playing with the different ways that I could use that same form. So everything from the closed form to more layers on the outside, opening up. The ones that are open in this way almost remind me of birds in flight, the way the top part of the pod looks. And figuring out how to hang this installation was really challenging. There's a lot of weight. I wanted it to be at eye level so that you felt like you were really looking at it, right, and could see up into it as well. And the same kind of shapes coming from the top and the bottom. There's a relationship between the ones that are coming up from the pedestals and the ones that are hanging down. And I mimicked the color and the shapes are the same so that to have a conversation between the two. I'm Shari Kaufman and I'm a ceramic artist working in Seattle, Washington.